The observation deck of the Stellar Harmony had seen many wonders: supernovas, quantum storms, the birth of stars, but nothing had prepared the crew for the sight of Hana's morning hare. She stumbled into the communal breakfast area at 0700 hours, her dark locks defying every known law of physics. They jutted out at angles that would make a mathematician weep, some strands reaching skyward as if attempting escape velocity, others plastered to her face like they'd surrendered to gravity entirely. Her eyes were barely open, one hand clutching a coffee mug like a lifeline, the other attempting and failing to pat down the catastrophe atop her head. The assembled aliens fell silent. Tavek, a young Crixian, barely past his third molt, stared with all four of his golden eyes wide with fascination. His fur, usually a pristine silver, stood slightly on end, a sign of extreme curiosity in his species. He leaned toward his podmate and whispered, "Is the human damaged?" "I don't think so," replied Mira, another cub, "but something is clearly wrong with her head fur." Hana, blissfully unaware of the concern she'd caused, shuffled toward the coffee dispenser. The Crixian cubs, 7 of them in total, all stationed on the ship as part of their species' educational voyage, huddled together, their whiskers twitching in what humans had learned to recognize as intense deliberation. "We should help," Tavik declared, his juvenile voice carrying the absolute certainty that only children possessed. "Humans helped us configure the gravity stabilizers last week. We must return the kindness." "But how do we fix head fur?" asked Jex, the smallest of the group. Tavik's ears perked up. "We groom our fur. Surely human fur requires similar maintenance." What followed was a plan that, in retrospect, the ship's captain would later describe as well-intentioned but catastrophically misguided. Hana had just taken her first sip of coffee, that blessed, life-giving elixir, when she felt small, furry paws tugging gently at her sleeve. She looked down to find Tavik gazing up at her with an expression of such earnest concern that her sleep-addled brain couldn't form a proper response. "Human Hana," he said formally, "we have noticed your head fur is in distress. We wish to assist." Before she could process this statement, 6 more cubs surrounded her, and she found herself being gently but insistently guided to a chair. Still only half awake, Hana allowed it, assuming this was some kind of cultural exchange moment she'd agreed to and forgotten about. "Just be gentle," she mumbled, setting down her coffee. Tavik took this as full consent and immediately began organizing his team. The Crixians approached grooming with the seriousness their species applied to all tasks. In their culture, fur maintenance was practically sacred. What they failed to account for was that human hair behaved nothing like Crixian fur. Tavik started by attempting to use his claws to separate the tangled strands, the way he might detangle his own coat. This only succeeded in creating static electricity, making Hana's hair reach even more aggressively toward the ceiling. One particularly rebellious lock actually stuck to the metal wall panel behind her. "It's fighting back," Jex squeaked. "Apply the smoothing technique," Tavik ordered, undeterred. 3 cubs immediately began patting Hana's hair down with their paws, synchronized rhythmic pats that might have worked on Crixian fur, but on human hair simply redistributed the chaos. The left side, which had been somewhat flat, now joined the right side in its vertical ambitions. Mira, showing what she believed was initiative, retrieved a Crixian grooming oil, a substance designed for fur that naturally repelled moisture. She dabbed it generously onto Hana's hair. The result was spectacular. The oil, meeting human hair's natural oils, in the existing static, created something that resembled a sculpture more than a hairstyle. Chunks of hair now stuck together in gravity-defying spikes, while other sections remained impossibly fluffy. Hana, warm and surrounded by purring cubs, had actually started to doze off again. The rhythmic patting was oddly soothing. She had no idea she now looked like she'd been struck by lightning while simultaneously falling into a cotton candy machine. "Perhaps we need to add weight," suggested Tavik, noting that gravity didn't seem to be working properly on the human's head fur. This led to the cubs attempting to place small decorative items, Crixian good luck charms essentially, throughout Hana's hair to weigh it down. Tiny bells, smooth stones, and even a miniature ship model found homes in the increasingly elaborate structure. It was at this moment that Captain Varesh entered the breakfast area. The Tithorian captain, who had commanded vessels for 40 cycles and considered himself unflappable, stopped dead in his tracks. His three mandibles clicked in what might have been suppressed laughter. "Tavik," he said carefully, "what exactly are you doing to Specialist Hana?" "Helping!" All seven cubs chirped in unison. Hana's eyes finally opened fully. She reached up and touched her head, her fingers encountering an architecture of hair, oil, and small objects that shouldn't have been there. Her expression cycled through confusion, realization, and then, to everyone's surprise, pure amusement. She started laughing. Not the polite chuckle of someone being diplomatic, but genuine deep laughter that made her shake and nearly dislodge the tiny ship model lodged behind her left ear. "Oh my God," she wheezed, pulling out her tablet to activate the camera function. The reflection showed something that belonged in a museum of abstract art. This is amazing." The cubs looked at each other uncertainly. Tavik's ears drooped. "We made it worse, didn't we?" Hana wiped tears from her eyes and pulled the young Crixian into a hug, careful not to squeeze too hard. "You made it spectacular. This is going in the ship's log. The day the cubs turned my bed hair into a masterpiece." Captain Varesh's mandibles clicked again. "Humanity," he muttered, not for the first time. "The only species that finds joy in chaos." "It's one of our best features," Hana agreed cheerfully, a small bell tinkling as she turned her head. "Besides, they were trying to help. That's what matters, right, Tavik?" The cub's fur brightened, his spirits restored. "Does this mean we succeeded?" "Absolutely," Hana declared. "I look incredibly unique right now. Very fashionable. Cutting edge." She spent the rest of the day wearing her cub's creation, refusing to fix it until her shift ended. Every crew member who saw her either tried to hide their reaction or failed entirely. The Crixian cubs followed her around proudly, announcing to anyone who'd listen that they'd given the human a proper grooming. That evening, before finally washing out the oil and removing the decorations, Hana took a picture with all seven cubs. They stood around her, beaming with pride, while her hair continued its defiant reach toward the stars. The photo was later included in the Galactic Cultural Exchange database under Interspecies Cooperation, Unexpected Outcomes, and became required viewing for anyone working with human crew members. The attached note read, "Humans possess remarkable resilience, adaptability, and, most importantly, the ability to find humor and connection in the most chaotic situations." This, perhaps more than their physical capabilities or technical skills, is what makes them invaluable members of any crew. Tavik kept a copy of the photo in his quarters for the rest of his life, a reminder of the day he learned that sometimes making things messier creates something far more beautiful than perfection ever could.